The EDA meeting this morning, October 7th, 2021 at 7:35, and we'll do roll call. So if Mr. Chansky, you'd take care of that for us.
Bevins, O'Day, Johnson,
Here.
Beezer, Kirsch, and Erickson.
Here. Thank you. Can I have a motion to amend or approve the agenda?
Second, Johnson.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, did you get a chance to read the minutes of the former meeting on September 2nd? If you did, we need a motion to approve those minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, financial report. Connie, if you're on, we'll take the financial report now.
I am. The financial report was in the packet. I'm helping staff the office right now, but I'm here virtually. So I have no question, or I have nothing to add unless you have some questions for me.
Anyone have any questions about the financial report that was provided by Connie? If not, we have a motion to approve the financial report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carried. All right, updates. Let's ask our executive director, Ms. Jennifer.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just a couple of updates. One, as you know, we had discussed at the last meeting the potential of negotiating a lease with Region 5 Development Commission for the annex. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. The City Council did authorize us to move forward with that negotiation. I think we had reported to you at the last EDA meeting that we did not anticipate the exam station to ever open again in Brainerd. Ironically, about a week later, I got a letter from DPS that they intend to open all 93 exam stations in the state of Minnesota, including the one in the annex. It was a form letter that we got along with everybody else, and we've had a really difficult time trying to get in touch with somebody at DPS regarding the exam station. Luckily, that letter gave us a contact name. I was able to reach out to that gentleman, and we've since had a few meetings. I did express to him that we are working with Region 5 Development Commission on a lease. Our lease, by the way, does give us a 30-day out of that lease. But I also explained to him that it is incredibly important to the city of Brainerd to have that exam station located here in the city of Brainerd. We've had countless people come in here asking us when they're going to reopen. They did assure me that they are going to open a location in Brainerd. I reached out to Tim Hool. The historic courthouse has a lot of empty space. And so the county was very interested in talking to DPS about potentially having a lease with them for that space. We had a meeting on Monday, I believe, yesterday actually, had a meeting yesterday to talk about that. And they are going to be touring the county facilities next Tuesday. It sounds like that's going to happen. They just don't know what location. So moving that forward, and just keep you posted. I did tell DPS we didn't want to just send them a letter and say, by the way, you have 30 days. We wanted to make sure that we were working with them early so we could help facilitate another location in Brainerd. I'll start to talk about this, but David and Eric may chime in as well. We were notified by D.W. Jones that they were not successful in receiving low-income housing tax credits for the development at 805 Laurel, where the Thrifty White building is. We've also had subsequent meetings with them. This is not dead. They are now, instead of looking at maybe workforce affordable housing, shifting this to market rate workforce housing. It's going to change the design a bit, but we just met with them yesterday preliminarily, as well as with Baker Tilly, who is our financial advisor, to kind of try to help us, figure this whole process out. David or Eric, I don't know if you have other things you want to add.
No, I think at this point, what we're looking from Skip and Andrew at this point is they're going to go back now. The performa that they had put together was based on the assumption of doing a low income workforce housing project. now that it's shifting to a market rate project, that they have to pretty much redo their whole pro forma. So that's, I think, their first task is, again, the design might change a little bit. They're gonna send that to their architect. But then they're gonna be looking at completely redoing their pro forma and then getting that back to us for evaluation to see what needs to be done to make sure that this project can still happen.
So the intent was, and the city council did adopt a resolution saying that they were willing or interested in considering a housing TIF district. They will no longer be looking at a housing TIF district. However, they may be looking at a redevelopment TIF district. So same amount of time, but just no restrictions on income for housing. It would be solely to eliminate blight and redevelop that parcel.
I think there's one thing that I know Jennifer has said that I think is very true is that this might be in a way a blessing in disguise. With a market rate, we do feel like that maybe a market rate project does work a little better in the downtown area. And plus also when you're looking at market rate, you get a lot less red tape than you have when you're using tax credits and such, which makes doing the actual project, once you can figure out the funding sources, and making that cash flow actually a lot easier. And you have a lot less red tape from, state and federal entities trying to have their fingers in the project.
So I don't know if there are questions about that before I move on.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a little slower for me. What is the difference between a residential TIF district and a redevelopment TIF district?
So a housing TIF district is really for affordable housing, and you have to meet criteria that is set out in statute. Either, and I gotta think about this for a second, 20% of the units, I'm gonna get it wrong. There are income restrictions.
There's income restrictions
There are
on
income
the
restrictions
housing.
on
On a
housing.
redevelopment, it's just eliminating blight with no restrictions.
That's correct. Now, so a housing TIF district, you're really working on it after the fact. So you want to make sure that those rents are restricted. On a redevelopment TIF district, you're really working on it before the fact. So the city would have to identify those buildings as blighted. So you would have to have an outside evaluator come
Well, I
in.
identify them as blight.
And I think we all do. Unfortunately, the statute's going to require a report that is verified by a third party showing that it is actually blighted based on statute. I don't think there is any concern that they will identify that as blight. And then the redevelopment TIF district also has some coverage ratios that you have to meet. At least 51% of the buildings in that district must be blighted. We're only talking about one at this point. And then the land itself has to be covered by 70%. Again, not an issue here. It's all building in a parking lot. So those are kind of the differences between redevelopment and housing.
Thank you.
Is there time limit differences between the two?
They're both 26 years.
Affordability still is in a little bit of play too. It's not that every single unit would be market rate. If we do go the route where we try to use the Housing Trust Fund through Crow Wing County HRA, there are some affordability limitations there, but instead of being at 80, all of the affordability being at 80% area median income, our Housing Trust Fund allows them to go up to 115% area median income, which does encapsulate that workforce. So it would still be market rate, I believe, as far as the rents that he was looking at potentially. But there may be some aspects of affordability in there if they are looking at doing project-based vouchers still for a number of units. In theory, then those are all going to be affordable units as well. So it's not completely dead, I think it's fair to say, but the majority of them would be market rate, which again, I think is a good thing. I would echo, Mr. Chansky and Jennifer on that. But we are going to work with them to try to get any support because obviously low-income housing tax credits were a big chunk of that financing package that he was looking at. We're going to have to fill a lot of gaps, I think, and use every tool that we can. So we're going to continue to brainstorm on what we can do to help with that.
And
I
when,
can't speak for the whole HRA, but I imagine our board over at the HRA would be still willing to consider a full allotment of 6 or 8
Right, vouchers.
vouchers,
I would-
project-based vouchers for the project.
I would think that there's still that support there, considering our board did vote in support of that at the previous iteration of this. So it'll certainly come back up before our board if that's something that the developer wants to explore. Again, it'll really come down to what they pencil out at, and if they need that support, we can certainly offer it.
The development that they had proposed was 36 units. However, now they would probably want to look at increasing the number of units because the more units you have, the better it cash flows.
Oh, so like everything is better
Certainly could be.
in a certain aspect.
Maybe a blessing in disguise.
But they're still looking at a mixed use where it would be retail on the
Cor-
ground floor.
Correct. There would still be commercial on the ground floor.
And then my other question is, that process of getting the third party to say it's blighted, is that something the city initiates? Or I'm just wondering, like, even without the go-ahead from this developer, does it make sense to start that process just so if this falls through another future developer, that's kind of one less thing that has to get done for
There,
them to?
it is, and I think there are a lot of kind of things to explore here. Typically, the way that is done when there is a development, the developer actually pays for that upfront. So they would provide they would fill out an application and they would provide the city with funds that would help pay for that evaluation, attorneys, our financial advisor. So there are some issues, there are some details I think to work out before we're at that point.
How long is that certification that this building is blighted good for? Because it may be a good idea for the EDA to put money into that, just so we have, just like we have the greenfields, or not greenfields, but shovel-ready sites out in the industrial park. How about we have a blighted-ready parcel downtown? I mean,
I can find out. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if anybody, I'll find out how long it's good for.
Might not be a waste of $10,000 or whatever to get that done.
15.
Only consideration I would say is that this is a privately owned building, and if you want to start going after those building owners and blighting their properties, I don't know from a perspective standpoint if that's the best route, unless we have those dollars from the developer, which, again, the developer did give us a sizable check for the TIF process, and this is part of that TIF process.
Yes.
So we do have funds available already. I'm not sure if it'll cover everything, but I think it'll be pretty close.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
just
you
my
have so
2
much
cents.
tact.
Well, I just wonder if that would be appropriate use of like the American Rescue Plan funds to get properties developed, because maybe not just that property, but other properties in downtown, just to make it easier for developers to come in and say like, okay, like I can go ahead with that, so.
So you're going to have a discussion this morning on the America Rescue Plan dollars, and I know David's going to be asking for your recommendations to send to council. Might be one of them.
Good questions. Thank you very much. Anything else for Jennifer?
And I just have one more item, and then
please.
I'm done. I just really cannot say thank you enough to everybody who participated in the sesquicentennial. We had 26 events between September 18th and the 26th. I couldn't even begin to rattle off our community partners that stepped up and helped with this because there are just too many. I attended, I think, all but one of the sesquicentennial events, and the majority of them were better attended than we anticipated. So I just a big, huge thank you. Jessie Ernster was here at the last meeting, and really, I can't thank her enough either. It was because of her coordination that this really happened. So while we all stepped up to the plate to help make this happen, Jessie kind of helped, wrap it up and put a bow on top. So, and that's it. David may have an update on parking commission.
Oh, I can do that. Yeah.
We have one question.
Yes.
I have a question in regards to the sesquicentennial. Since it went off without a hitch, I'm sure there's issues, but it was very successful. Do you think the city of Brainerd would like to have like a weekend or a week birthday every year to kind of bring people downtown or bring people to the lakes area, or, because it seemed to, a lot of people came to check it out.
We're dead.
Doesn't Brainerd already have like a history week?
We do.
So just kind of adding on to that maybe.
Thank you, good suggestion. I think, and also throwing it out to the History Week people. I'll forward that.
Excellent, good. Jennifer, you had one more thing?
Nope, David.
I was just going to add a quick update on the Parking Commission. They have gone and done what the council's asked them to do and developed a number of recommendations. They'll be presenting those recommendations to the city council in a workshop on Monday, October 25th. So in 3 weeks. And just kind of having a roundtable discussion about their recommendations, what brought them to the recommendations, and then just kind of putting it into the city council's hands of what to do with as they kind of see fit. They have a variety of ranging of things, talking about management of parking to other just general improvements, especially in the downtown area, from wayfinding to just other aesthetic improvements, things that just make the downtown area much more pedestrian friendly, support businesses, encourage patrons to come downtown, but all in that area of parking. One of the things that the Parking Commission is recommending that the EDA should be aware of is one of the recommendations that does involve increasing fees in the lots, and potentially also the consideration of meters, involves the designation of 90% of all net revenue from those being transferred to the EDA to be used for downtown. One of the things that the EDA discussed was that if we're going to increase rates and then end up having net revenue, they should be used back. That revenue should be plugged back into the downtown, not just go into the city's general coffers. And the recommendation would be to have that funds essentially be put under the direction of the EDA to be used for downtown for anything from some of the other recommendations that they had in there are things like improving the informational kiosks, replacing those, doing things like wayfinding, beautification, other types of programming downtown, to use those funds to do that, and then have those funds be essentially under the purview of the EDA. So should be aware that that is one of the recommendations that the Parking Commission is making.
Good, yes.
If you're putting in parking meters, where would they be and how many?
So their recommendation at this time, again, just a recommendation, is to put them on the corridor of Laurel between 6th and 8th and 7th between Front and Maple.
Are you going to allow any 15-minute parking?
That is
without?
something they absolutely are doing. In fact, one of their first recommendations is as it gets implemented, having maybe even up to that first hour being free at first, and then maybe putting it back, and then as people get used to the meters, maybe moving that number down. They did talk about absolutely having that first 15 minutes free for the people that I'm just running into Cocoa Moon quick, or I'm just picking up an order, something really quick. That way I don't have to pay. I did some research on different meter systems out there. It's 2021. They've got some pretty intuitive systems out there that make it really easy, both from on the city side for enforcement, but also for users that make those meters. It's no longer like the coins. It just makes it super easy to use, to again encourage people to use it. So they are looking at that. So if there are people that are coming really short time, that they don't have to pay. The impetus really behind the meters is one of the things that the Parking Commission identified is one of the biggest issues with on-street parking downtown is the management issue and enforcement. And so they kind of saw it as there has to be some kind of enforcement mechanism downtown to keep people from just parking and hogging spots, especially tenants. But they also recognized that, our police department is, they're quite busy and they can't always be down there every 15, 30 minutes doing parking checks. So unless the city wanted to essentially, hire, for the lack of a better term, a meter maid, someone who's constantly down there, here's an option that, here's another option as an enforcement that's easy to enforce. And then, if you want to park down there for 4 hours, you can park down there for 4 hours. You just have to be willing to pay for it. And then again, collect some revenue that then can be put back into the downtown. So that's kind of the general where the meters came from. I think, I did hear from one person that they've heard that might have been one or more voice dominating the conversation regarding that. And I think I can say actually that I've been was very impressed with the parking commission. I don't think there was any one voice that dominated the discussion. I would say even the parking meters, there was even some disagreement on the parking meters. And I think it really, what the recommendation is it was really a consensus from among the commission members of what to do, and not just the parking meters, but their entire recommendations that'll be going before the council on the 25th.
I know that when we were in this conversation, Gabe may remember this, but we were having these conversations previously. Weren't these meters pretty expensive?
They can be. Depends on what you're planning on doing. If you want to do the kiosks versus individual. In the research I did, we did it based off of individual meters. The reason we did it that way is because, one, that's generally the most expensive option, so you kind of know what your high end is. Plus, if we're going to do it, we need to make it easy for people, and there was a concern that if we do, like, the kiosk, we already have an issue of people who, they don't want to park 3 stores down from the store they want to go to. So now if I have to park, and I have to go this way to the kiosk, but I'm going this way to my destination, I don't want to do that. So kind of an ease factor. So there is a costly, but you have it in a way I've kind of costed it out where they do pay for long-term, pay for themselves. It's more of that initial investment to get them in. But there are options that range, you could probably do it as cheap as, depending again the system when you do 30, 40,000 to 100,000, depending on what kind of systems you want to use.
Pennies, ARP dollars.
Yeah. I know it was when we were having the conversation around surface lots and all of that, then the meters came up as a fairly expensive option. But, I mean, you're right. The systems are designed now to be pretty darn simple. I mean,
and the systems that the EDA, that the parking commission was considered, they are full systems. So it is coins, it is cards, it is mobile apps. So however you want to pay, you can pay.
And kiosks, like in Canal Park, you can just pay however you want. Make it very, very easy.
Yep. That's the ultimate goal, is just make it easy.
And I've been on council for 7 years, and I've had people asking for meters, very few, but people asking me for meters for the whole time I've been on council, because there are certain businesses like hair salons that your appointment takes 2.5 hours. And you don't have an option to park there's not even an option to park for 3 hours downtown.
And there was a concern too. That was one of the things that was raised, is again balance. Again, the idea with meters is also balancing that. On one hand, they're like, well, 2 hours they're finding is sometimes is for some patrons is too short, because downtown is turning more into, I'm going to downtown for this one business. It's turning to, I'm going downtown and I'm going to shop the downtown. I'm going to I'm going to go to my hair. I'm going to go get something to eat lunch. I might go into one of the other shops. So I might need more than 2 hours. But the problem is, if you bump it up to 3 or 4 hours, that's great for the patrons, but then it also empowers tenants to park on the street longer as well.
Right. We do have landlords that are saying, hey, leave your car there till 11 and you can bring it back at 2.
So that's kind of where that balancing. There's even interesting, just one little tidbit. One of the meters companies that I talked to, their even system has a sensors thing. So say you go to your hair salon, you pay for 2 hours. Turns out your stylist is sick or whatever, couldn't come in that day. So now I guess my appointment's canceled. You go back to your car, and well, I guess I just gave someone 2 free hours of parking. Well, what the sensor does is actually it senses your car leave, and when it senses it resets the meter to 0. So that's a little bit more to come. Again, October 25th at 6 p.m. is when the council will be meeting with the parking commission to hear their recommendations.
I just have one other thing regarding the meters. I would not be scared to mix and match the different styles, because lot parking is a lot easier to do a kiosk. versus on the street, a standalone probably would work a lot better.
And right now, they are not recommending doing it in the lots. I think the idea was, again, to try to push more people to use the lots first. I will say, actually, speaking of the lots, one other thing I should also mention, put on the EDA is, this might, because this probably would end up potentially in your lap as well. One of their other recommendations is to essentially develop a marketing plan and market specifically the Front Street the Front Street parking lot, the Laurel Street parking lot, and the city parking lot for development. And not put them up to sale for, whoever wants to buy them, but to put essentially a marketing plan together to get potentially someone who might want to purchase those to put a building on. So that is another item that is part of the recommendations as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jansky. Any more questions? All right, let's move forward then to the HRA. Thank you, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll be pretty brief today, as we have already talked about 805 Laurel. Continuing work, getting closer to completion with our boiler project at the North Star building. We have finally turned up a couple of the boilers. There's 4 that we're replacing. So new hot water started running yesterday, and it's actually been a very issue-free, conversion. Not a lot of downtime for our tenants, which is huge when you're dealing with 162 people or 162 units. Anytime you start replacing water and things like that, it gets to be a little difficult, but they've done a good job, and we're hoping that everything is turned up here in the next week or 2, and everything's completed by October. So all in all, good project. Happy that it's getting towards completion. The other thing I'll just touch on, and I've been involved with multiple discussions with the city, with other developers, not just the one at 805 Laurel, but developers that are looking at single-family homes and doing development out there with some of the available lots in the area, as well as some multifamily. And these are developers that are really coming to us saying, to the HRA and to the city, saying, we're ready to build. Where can we build? What can we do? What kind of a plan? I'm sure, I would assume that hopefully you are all aware that there's a very large tract of land that hit the market on a private sale south Brainerd. It's about 350 acres. That's a big swath of land that we can certainly envision some sort of housing, maybe some commercial along the 210 corridor. But that's certainly on our radar, and we have had discussions with interested parties. Don't know how quickly that will go, but that's a big piece of the puzzle for the city of Brainerd, I think, for housing, and that's a lot of acreage. That's probably not going to be just one developer that can tackle that, and if there was one developer, it'd probably take a lot of years to get that fully built out. So trying to look for partners, potential partnerships to maybe chunk off some of that land. But that's exciting. That's a lot of land that's come available. So hopefully more to come in the months as we move forward with that. Multifamily, again, is something that we can certainly use to increase density for that population density. Again, we're behind the 8 ball, I would say, on housing density. We just know we need it. So hopefully we can continue to have some of those multifamily folks at the table. Was actually up in Pequot with another interested individual and was there with Tyler, and this developer just came down to talk to that housing, the interested folks in housing in Pequot, just to kind of tell them what they've experienced and how they've actually built a lot of multifamily in Bemidji, and it's got a really good, I think, model. So a lot of development talk in and throughout, not just Brainerd, but throughout the county, which is keeping me busy, certainly, and keeping Tyler busy, keeping the city folks busy, but those are good things. So we're hopeful to continue to move those forward.
Mr. Chair, if I may just add on to that, we've had some discussions with a different financial advisor on the potential of helping maybe figure out a plan for the property that Eric is referencing. This organization, Ellers, has oftentimes stepped in to help kind of facilitate a larger master plan.
Ellers, what's that?
Ellers is another Baker Tilly. It's a financial advisor. But they're two key staff. Actually, were practitioners at a city and now have been at Ellers for the last 20 years. They have really good relationships with developers. I've worked with them in the past where we have actually done some master planning and some solicitation of developers, and it's been successful. And so at some point, we may be bringing something back to the EDA to look at developing that land maybe more proactively, and looking at a way that maybe we could, if we aren't successful in reaching local developers, maybe there's a way that we can help facilitate that land and work with Ellers to move something forward that entices developers. I don't necessarily mean in a financial enticement from the city, rather just an organization who clearly understands and does this all the time.
I have a question, Eric.
Yes.
That property is not annexed into the city, is it?
It is.
Majority of it is. There is some land on the east side of 210, right? That is not in the city. But, yeah, David.
Yeah, there's about 80 acres on the south side of Business 371, southeast side. That's not in city limits, but it would, so if that were to be developed, we'd want to annex it. It would not be a difficult process to annex that property.
So there's 240, 50, 60 acres
About 348 and a half that is up for sale
Of
right
total, and yeah, no, about 200
Oh, good.
plus that's annexed.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Can we use ARP funds to buy land or form LLCs with private developers to purchase land?
Certainly came up.
If you're willing to withstand the audit in 5 years.
It's a risk. The answer is maybe.
It was one of the questions
See,
that
the
was
city of
posed.
Brainerd
The answer
tried
was
that
not
once.
no.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
And then just, we've got John's rehab report down there. Monty continues to build out in Brainerd Oaks and Serene Pines and Delmar. So things continue to move forward there. Monty is still looking at taking down a couple more lots before the end of the year. I ask that anyone that's got interest drive through Brainerd Oaks. I drove through there last week and had 3 crews out there working at different sites and different portions of that construction. So he's building, and that's a good thing. So we're excited and thrilled that continues to move forward pretty smoothly. With that, that's all I've got.
Any other questions for Eric? Great, thank you
Okay,
so much,
thank you.
Eric. Tyler, Mr. Bladek.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. How are you this morning?
Excellent.
Good. If anybody noticed, our report is on our new logo and new color schemes. So if that finally is out and you can see what that is, if you've got some real interest in it, jump onto our website. Our website is brand new. It's a lot of good information out there. We're waiting on the electronic version of your the guide that Jesse put together. So if there's an electronic version of that residential guide, or I don't know what she called it. The name is escaping.
Resident packet.
New resident. I thought it was a residential guide, but yes, yeah. So that'll be out there on our site. So that's good information. A few things to focus on this month at least. I know the meeting that happened, Eric attended, Eric presented at the meeting that we partnered with the Chamber of Commerce on a residential recruitment focus group meeting that occurred on the 2nd, I believe, if memory serves, the 2nd of September. It was right after our EDA meeting. I would say we had 35 to 40 business owners from throughout the county that attended the meeting. So I think we did, we opened it up to the business community, asking a lot of questions around how can we affect everything from childcare to housing to recruitment and retention of employees. Obviously, the world of economic development doesn't work if we don't have those things. Most of our cities are going to struggle with keeping folks around. Everybody's asking and recruiting the same way and looking for the same people. We're just trying to figure out how we can be different. One of the things that's come through that obviously is ringing pretty loud and clear was the statement around $1 million. So we had a conversation around a statement of $1 million. So if $1 million if you put $1 million into childcare, as the YMCA is looking at right now, and could create potentially 85 slots. That's 85 slots of rotating. They're rotating slots. It's not just 85. So the longevity of $1 million in childcare means a lot more than what it does in housing. Now, that doesn't mean that housing isn't necessary, but when you use $1 million, $1 million, if Monty's building us a house, it's going to get us 4 houses, so it's where do we put our efforts? Where are we trying to make the largest impact and make it quickly? And we understand that we can make some impact fairly quickly if we can get some of the dollars needed in the childcare arena. That's a first step. We're always moving forward with all of our communities on the housing side of things and the developers and in these meetings. So it's extremely important that we are addressing all of it. But something that was, I think, really hit home for a lot of people was understanding what truly $1 million could do for our community. So that led to obviously us working directly and putting a considerable amount of man hours into the completion of the the DEED Child Care Economic Development Grant for the YMCA. That is a different grant than was completed earlier this year. They were looking. There's multiple grants out there that are dealing with child care. This one, in essence, Shane said, "How can you guys put this together for me?" So that he's doing. I think he's in the middle of probably 4 different grants right now. So we took this on, completed all the information for him, submitted the application prior to its deadline with obviously letters of recommendation from multiple business owners. So there was looking for private and public entities to support this initiative, which were made available. This particular grant is $300,000, and most of you know with the way these grants are designed, we had a really small window. We had about 15 working days to get this completed and get this turned in. This, like other DEED grants, there's 2 application periods, one obviously in the month of September, the next one will be in the month of March. We figured that if we got this in the first pass through, that 50% of these funds that were available in this grant were going to Greater Minnesota, which is much different than what they normally do. Usually it's a 65-35 split. So feel confident that they will get some consideration. This grant application should score very highly. So hopefully they can get that. If those funds are made available to them, that gives them the opportunity to complete the purchase of the building that they're working on right now. So happy to help the Y with that. It's a good project, obviously for us, but it makes a pretty significant impact in our community and in downtown Brainerd. So very important project. The other thing that I will mention prior to wrapping up this morning is that our benefits survey has gone out. If most of you are subscribed to us or the chamber via email, you would have received this. There are a number of other groups, obviously, that are putting this out there. We're working with Lara. We're working with the Human Resources group locally. So we asked a number of questions inside of this, and hopefully we're going to get some tremendous response so that we can put out a white paper that identifies what benefits are available for our business community throughout Crow Wing County. And this should hopefully help us continue to provide this roadmap of how we retain and recruit new employees, because you're seeing a lot of information out there about what people are paying, and that's an important piece certainly of this puzzle. But pay is one thing. There's signing bonuses that are out there, but it is the benefit package that ultimately is going to drive, I think, someone to say, yeah, I'm going to take this job over another job. So we hope to have this information available fairly soon. And David and I happened to hear Mitch speak on some of the things they're doing over at Mille Lacs, and as they spoke about entrepreneurship and how to maintain businesses and properties, and the work that High Tech is doing down there and redeveloping some of these buildings that are inside the Mille Lacs community, I was dumbfounded. I knew that they were doing it, but I didn't know they were doing it to that scale. So it's pretty impressive stuff by those groups that are involved in that. But it shows, I think what it did certainly for me sitting in the audience was how they involved the community, how they involved the band down there, and then outside vendors and construction companies to make this happen, use some public dollars to get a lot of things done. So just thought I'd relay that to you. He did a nice job. He didn't get he didn't get much time to talk. There was a couple of people that happened to monopolize that, but either way, but it does show what they can do with redevelopment and certainly with some blighted properties. So, the one thing I still will mention, we did, our board, we held a strategic planning session on the 27th of September, trying to, look at some of the focused intentions of Bladick as we move forward, identifying some of the programs, obviously, that are important to us, and some of the feedback we're getting from our communities and in some areas that we can create programming and hopefully help our businesses continue to move forward and grow and expand. So that's what I have for this morning, Mr. Chair. If anybody's got any questions, happy to answer.
Any questions from the commissioners? Yes.
Just one, in regards to that survey, are you just doing it through your website and the chamber? Is that the only two access points?
No, there's 7 different access points. I can email it over to you today.
Okay, I was just wondering if there's a way using Instagram or Facebook or one of those to like have people share, like this makes a difference in our community.
We
Give
can
us
put
your
it.
2
Yeah.
cents on what you think is important.
Yeah. So the survey went out on Monday. So we'll certainly share it out in that capacity later, probably tomorrow, I would guess. And then starting next week, we'll start pushing it out in social media, asking people to complete the survey and make sure that they share it out. So
Cool,
happy to.
thank you.
Good. Thank you, Glenn, very much. Yes.
One question, Wayne. Did I first noticed your new website and logo on like a Saturday morning from a Facebook post that you posted on Saturday morning? Did you really launch a whole new rebrand on a Saturday?
No.
No.
All we were doing is we were teasing it out because the launching of it was the ad in the Labor Day edition to the Dispatch.
Oh, okay.
So it was just a teasing, see what's coming type of thing. But yeah,
I'm with you. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for Tom?
You didn't think that's a good idea to launch on a Saturday morning?
I wouldn't.
No, neither did I.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll move forward here. We asked some of the commissioners to get together with Mr. Chansky and on the Economic Development Services request. So, David, would you take it over, please, and fill us in?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last month, the EDA did vote to go to develop an RFP for economic development services. And Commissioners Johnson, O'Day, and Kirsch were tasked to work with staff to develop the RFP. So we met and they pretty much created I'll call it a framework for the RFP for us to work off of to draft. This RFP is in your packet. Really the main items of it are what was identified are essentially 8 buckets of services that the EDA is going to be asking for potential organizations to fill. And what came out of this, and I'll also invite Marie or Gabe to fill in anything that I miss, was a desire to allow organizations to submit proposals for the buckets that they do. So, we have the buckets we have are general marketing, funding, property marketing and development, business retention and recruitment, business resources, support and program development, river to rails facilitation, Main Street programming, and we also put a miscellaneous bucket in there in case there's anything we're missing that an organization thinks, we do this and we think you would benefit from that, gives them an opportunity to pitch that service. And so, because we realize that's a lot of different things. And there may be organizations that say, we're a marketing organization and we market cities and stuff, so we can do your marketing really good, but we're not funders. We don't do grant management or grant application. So they can submit proposals for the things that they do best, and then gives the EDA the opportunity to potentially partner with multiple organizations to fill all of these service areas. Also with that, the decision was made that for the purpose of this RFP, You can see that the entire 2022, the EDA's entire 2022 budget of $145,036 is to be considered available for consulting services. Again, the reason we put that in there is to help people understand where the EDA is financially. So as they're submitting proposals for their services, you know, someone's not submitting a $300,000 marketing service when obviously the EDA doesn't even have $300,000 to spend. So that's kind of the crux of what this RFP is. Looking for entities to provide those services. A little bit about what the proposed schedule is that should the EDA authorize staff to field this RFP today, our goal would either to have it out by the end of the day today or tomorrow, depending if we need to make any adjustments to the RFP. Proposals would be due by the end of the day on October 29th. And then we would present those proposals to the EDA on November 4th. We did put a slot in there that if there are multiple entities that are submitting proposals for one or more service areas, that the EDA could, if needed, schedule to have interview those prospective proposers. Right now, we have it in there. They're tentatively scheduled for the week of November 11th. I just put that in there. That can change if, you know, that week does not work for you and you want to do a different week in November. And then the idea would be then that the EDA could formally select proposals on December 9th, and then we'd go into the contract negotiation. Those contracts would be agreed upon your first meeting in January, and then those services would begin at the beginning of the year of 2022. With that, I don't know if there's anything that Gabe or Marie you want to add to what I've done, or otherwise I'll take any other comments or questions from the commission about the RFP.
All right. Did you get a chance to look at this, commissioners? Any comments? I thought it was excellent, excellent job. Only comment I have, we pay the city or for the city workers to help us. So we really don't have 145,000, do we? We have,
Wayne, you used to pay the city zero and they still did all your work on the EDA.
well, I
We-
remember those days.
We included the contribution that is given to the city into this RFP. So the city staff would be providing in-kind services.
So we do have 145,000?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Comments?
One question, I guess, Wayne, to clarify here. If we do interviews, would the interviews be with the entire EDA, or would we use O'Day, Kirsch, and myself?
I think that's a
As the
decision that can be
subcommittee.
made by the EDA.
Yeah. And I suppose we could wait until we see what we receive on November 4th to worry about that. Do we meet on December 9th? I think that's a Tuesday, because it's my birthday and I looked at it just yesterday.
Actually meet on December 2nd. That's Thursday, the first Thursday in December is actually December 2nd. So thank you for catching that.
Yeah.
But the 9th is a Thursday.
Is it really?
Yes. But it happens to be the second Thursday. So this would be December 2nd. So thank you for catching that. Make that correction.
The language in the scope of services section, the second sentence, if that can just be reworded to kind of, I think what it's trying to get at is that you don't need to apply to all of them to submit to the RFP. You can, pick one or all. So the way it's worded, maybe it could just be adjusted to make that more clear.
Yep. You can adjust that.
And then did we want to include any language in the RFP about reporting? So what we expect from the organization in terms of like end of year reporting?
That's something we could either put it in the RFP, or I think that also would be in the contract development phase as well. We would definitely put that in any contract that you would be making regular reports.
I'd like to add to the RFP that there's an expectation of monthly or quarterly reporting,
Okay.
yeah.
Monthly reporting, and then also, now that I'm thinking about it, is the expectation they are going to attend EDA meetings?
No, I mean, if we hire a firm out of San Antonio, they don't need to fly up here
We got virtual.
every month. No.
Yeah.
We'll add that.
Good. Excellent comments. Anyone? Yes.
Does this need to be approved?
Yes.
Yes, so we would want a motion to authorize staff to field this RFP with the recommended changes.
Mr.
Can
Tyler?
can I make a couple comments? There's just a few things down here. On the top section, the schedule identifies proposals to be presented in the 4th, and the bottom portion, it's
Yeah,
lists
no,
the 7th.
that's correct. We caught that already.
Just making sure that you caught that. And I have one question, just regarding the River to Rails facilitation, number 6. Facilitate report on meetings and activities of the River to Rails community. Can someone expand on that for me, please? It's a every other month meeting that's held. Obviously, it's a program that Bladek created, so I'm just curious if this program inside we don't comment on the River to Rail activity in this meeting. Is this an add-on? I'm just asking a question. It got proposed to me quite
You got the inside
interesting
track
yesterday.
on that one, Tyler.
What's that?
So you got the inside track on that one.
Yeah, I understand that, but it was asked of me yesterday, so. And a couple board members asked me about it too.
Do you want me to tackle it? So I'm going to kind of say what I think I heard when we had our meeting to draft the RFP. River to Rail is incredibly important. We want to make sure that it does not get lost. And so I think what the committee decided was to call it out separately to make sure that it was included in part of the EDA's work. And I guess I would look to Gabe and Marie to correct me if I'm wrong.
Could you reword your question, Tyler, so I can understand what it is you're asking, or your board members are asking?
So the question came out is that this is not a service that is currently under the EDA's purview, if you will. This is not something that exists inside the EDA. This is a group that, obviously we created in 2018 to focus on this area. The initiative that came out of that, or the incentive program that came out of that, was adopted by the city council a couple of years ago, with regards to the offering of services downtown, to waiving fees and things such as that. And then the city council obviously defined what the River to Rail corridor was. But the activities that occur outside of that piece is not owned by River to Rail any longer. It's owned by the city. So the general meetings, the information that's provided at River to Rail on an every other month basis is not something that's brought back here. So the question is how does this fit into Brainerd's EDA as a piece of service that you're
That should be an
offering?
agenda item at the EDA council workshop, I think. Because, it has been entirely a city thing. It hasn't.
The incentive
EDA's
is a
been
city
updated on a
thing.
couple things, but the city is the entity that's been working with Bladek on it.
So,
It's
Mr.
a very good question.
Yeah, along with the chamber, and there's community action. There's a number of groups that are part of this. So.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think there's also a clarification here. There are at this stage, there actually is, there's technically two different things. So we do have, kind of as mentioned, the River Rail Incentive Program. That's the program that waives permit fees and such within a specific corridor, and that is managed by my department, by the Community Development Department. And I report on that to the City Council. I think the other thing that Tyler is talking about is there is a River to Rail separate group that has been under kind of Bladek's purview. We actually just met yesterday. They meet every other month. Right now, it's facilitated by Bruce Buxton, and that group has become really started meeting. We started meeting last year or this year. When did we really start?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And really what that group has kind of formed into is a group of businesses and organizations that generally fall within the River to Rail corridor. And it's kind of more of a group that meets every other month to discuss what's going on with their different entities and just to keep each other kind of up to date. What each other are doing, and then to facilitate collaboration and such like that. So I think maybe that's what Tyler's question is the EDA asking for that, that group hasn't historically been under the EDA, now is the EDA asking, I think maybe, if I'm understanding correctly, is that kind of more of your question, Tyler?
Yeah, the understanding when looking at it is that this is not a part of the EDA currently? Are you bringing this in? And if you were, I think we would have to have some kind of release of its content and spearheading the meetings, obviously. We own the logo, we own the video, we own all of that, which is irrelevant, but that's where the board is coming from.
Yeah, it's really not worth that much if we're not working together.
And I was the one that brought it up obviously during the planning session, was that it is a good program. It does work. It does work within the city, the boundary that's set within the city. I mentioned that we should expand it potentially, and that it should be something that eventually is brought under the city. But I was surprised to see it here, and it was brought to my attention by a couple other people. But either way, I'm just trying to get some clarification.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can try here, Tyler. The city and the EDA had that joint meeting at the beginning of this year, or whatever, and kind of the city said we want the EDA to kind of be advisory and kind of take a look at all things economic development within the city of Brainerd, and River to Rails is one of those things. So I think that's how that ends up on an EDA thing as well. We were asked by the city council to keep an eye on what's going on. This is one of the things that's going on. Now, can we just say Bladek is no longer involved with the thing they own and they created? No, we probably can't do that, but I don't know. Here we are. So it's a very good question, and I don't have an answer.
Jennifer?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may try to answer this. What I gathered from our discussion was not necessarily, oh my gosh, we're going to take the River to Rails and we're going to put it under the EDA. I don't think that was a part of the discussion. I think a part of the discussion was River to Rails is really important. As Gabe mentioned, the council asked the EDA to do all things economic development, and so this is an important part of connecting our communities, and that the EDA should be a part of this. When I read it, I see facilitate, record, and, well, I guess facilitate does just kind of throw that for a loop, doesn't it?
Would you feel better if we just took that one out there, Tyler?
Well, I don't want to eliminate the one thing that I am hearing from you that is the one thing we would be able to do on here. So
I think that you've got a pretty good chance to
So no, I think it's just some clarification on it, because I don't really know how to frame it differently, because facilitation, basically what it says in it is, I mean, there isn't anything the EDA has facilitated with this to this point. So I'm just curious.
We're looking for
raises
a group
the
to
question.
facilitate it, and I think part of what we've paid Bladek to do is facilitate River to Rail. That's in part.
It's not in our agreement, but yes.
Right. Other duties as assigned or whatever.
The catch-all.
And this is also, Mr. Chair, I think also, I know Jennifer and I are racking our brains over here how to figure this one out. And it is one of those things that I'll just say, even just from a city's perspective, Jennifer and I attend those meetings. We're going to continue to attend those meetings, just wearing our city hats, not even necessarily our EDA hats. So, yeah, I don't really know if this is.
What does Bladek want? What does Bladek want the city's involvement to be in River to Rail or the EDA? I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a question.
I would hate to answer that question by myself. I don't think it's without speaking with the board because the board is the one that a number of years ago approved this incentive, funded it, paid for, I don't want to answer on behalf of the board to say, this is what I'd like to do with it. I have my own opinions, but my own opinions are just mine. But I don't want to speak for the board on the investment that's made. If I were to say, hey, let's just turn it over to the EDA and let them run with it. Our facilitator, obviously, at this point is Bruce Buxton. You'd have to working through him or working through us to figure out who would take this and keep it moving forward. But I don't know. I can ask the question, but it's not going to be timely. I don't have a board meeting I have a board meeting on Friday. It can come up on Friday.
I have a question. Are you looking more of a confirmed partnership with the EDA?
That's the good question.
If this would be a river to rail facilitation of the strength of a partnership, so it's not taking it away from you, and the EDA is not taking 100% control, it's just saying someone's gonna manage and make sure the two are communicating. Is that what you guys are looking to have? Or we are looking to have?
To essentially be I'm trying to understand, is it more of like the EDA's liaison to the River to Rail group, who then they report back to the EDA, what the River to Rail group is discussing, and
I mean, we know it's an important driver, obviously, and the incentive program that we created, that we gave to the city, is proving its worth over and over again with the waiving of permitting fees in the Sack and Whack and downtown. I know it's driven business down here. It certainly has. We have confirmed commitment of that. So it's just I think if we can weed out some clarification there, I'd be happy to take it to the board to say, what do we want to do with it going forward?
So-
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just, my final thought, and we could talk about this all day, because it is a little confusing, but my final thought on this is river to rails is used in this proposal as something we all understand. Right? It's the larger, greater downtown area.
For sure.
If the formal Bladek Chamber River to Rails group starts plucking businesses from Brainerd and putting them out on a suburban hellscape strip in Baxter, the city is going to say, no thanks, we don't want to work with you anymore. We're going to go our own way on River to Rails, and we will have to think of a different name and whatever at that time. So I think it's important that it's included in here, just as a general concept, that we want somebody with a focus on the greater downtown area. Right now, that's called River to Rails. It could be called something else next year. It could be called something else in 10. It will be called something else in 20 years. Nothing lasts forever.
Right.
So I think that's kind of why we have it here.
Mr. Chair, may I make a
Yes.
recommendation that maybe this item should really turn into River to Rail's representation, and it really talk, and the body more is represent the EDA to, and report back to the EDA on the meetings and activities of the River to Rails community.
I really like that. I really like that. Because I want to get rid of that facilitate and record. So I think you got a good point there, Chansky. Yes, Eric?
Next thought on Mr. Chansky, maybe it's Rivers Rail initiatives. And these are all initiatives that we're talking about here, right? Maybe that's the right wordsmithing of it. I don't know. But I think what I'm hearing is there's consensus that River to Rails is important, that geographic area is important. What are we talking about? It's really initiatives. It's not necessarily facilitating. That would be my feedback.
How does that sound, Tyler?
I'm okay with it. We can read however, the facilitation piece of it was, I have to bring this to
Yeah.
my board, and I've already been called on it twice, so.
Yes.
The last thing to comment on is that there isn't you just have to identify how the proposals need to be submitted. It just said proposals submitted due. It doesn't say how you want them submitted. I don't want somebody walking in here with a piece of paper. That's not are they submitted electronically? Who do you want them submitted to?
It says give them a chance, yeah.
Yep, on the bottom. Just doesn't say how.
Right, it says right here, if you are interested in submitting a written proposal to perform any of these services, please submit 3 copies and a digital copy of the proposal to me.
You want them
Electronic?
electronically?
3 paper copies and a digital.
You want paper
Chance, what
copies?
is
You want
this,
them electronically?
1983?
My staff asked me, so.
I think submitting it by electronic.
Yeah, I would just
Would
get an
be-
electronic copy, yeah.
This is just the pretty much the general that we use for all of our, is 3 paper and a digital. is how we do it. If the EDA doesn't care for any papers, we can do just digital. So,
I vote for digital. It'll make your process a lot easier.
Your paper, you just have to scan it in and email it to me.
Does that make sense, Mr. Chansky?
yep, we're just gonna do submit a digital. Easy, simple.
Take the 3 copies out. Good, thank you. Yes,
I just have one other question. How are you letting the public know about this RFP?
Yep, so how the process we will use is, once this is fielded, it goes on our website, we will put it out there to a bunch of different like League of Minnesota Cities, I'll probably send it to the Economic Development Association of Minnesota, they post these kind of things. We'll probably send something to the dispatch as well. And then we also, if there are identified entities out there as well, we will also solicit as well. But we put it out there broadly and try to get as much across the board as possible. We have found actually some pretty good success using entities like the League of Minnesota Cities and other organizations like EDA, the American Planning Association, the International County City Management Association generally does a pretty good job at getting out there. Those are sites that companies and groups do check, and then locally, again, we'll probably put it in the dispatch. We'll get it out there on our social media page, on our website as well for local.
I would encourage you to put it on the chamber, to send it out to all of the members that are actually living and working in Brainerd. Would be nice. Because it's nice to send it out to the whole U.S., but we have a lot of qualified people living right here.
You're against the San Antonio firm?
I'm just saying, if there's someone in our backyard that's qualified, and
Absolutely.
it'd be nice to hear what they have to say.
excellent point, excellent. My only problem, or my question, or I wish this was June. To me, it just seems, wow.
That's tight.
How do you put this stuff together? And Tyler, you're not going to have a problem, huh?
In roughly 15 days, how do you put this together?
That,
Yeah, it's challenging.
It
We're
is
up to the task.
it's very challenging, the way I'm looking at it. Like I said, I wish it was July we were doing this. Just the time frame is, man. You got your own work, plus you're going to submit proposals for a new adventure. It just seems like it's jammed in there. I mean, I understand, man, how do you put that proposal together to try to, but, huh?
8 proposals.
Yeah.
Well, one proposal
8
with
line
8
items.
items that we can choose or not choose. Wayne, I didn't consider that until you said it, but October 29th is actually ridiculous. If you're a nonprofit, if you're a BLADEC and you have monthly board meetings, there are people who already had their October meeting. They can't put a proposal together to submit to us because they've already met for the month.
We can
Why
always extend this and then put
I
it.
would
yeah.
say we might need to push
Good point.
everything back 1 month, and
Yep.
it starts in February instead of January.
Yep.
We can move everything and
I'd say we do that, and Tyler,
Okay.
get us a 1 month service fee to BLADEC continue doing their things through January of 2022.
Fair enough.
So we'll have it as, they'll be due in November. You'll review them on December 2nd, and then we'll do, potential interviews in December. EDA selects at your meeting in January, contracts in February.
Unless anybody disagrees, but
That works.
it is a tight timeline.
No qualms on our end.
Yeah, my board meeting is tomorrow, and with it in draft form, I can't present it.
Right, yeah.
So I appreciate that, Gabe. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll make that change.
Thank you for making that. And it just gives us an extra 30 days, 31
Absolutely.
days. Good. Anything else?
So, Mr. Chair, at this point, I think what we would just need is we request a motion from the commission to authorize staff to issue this RFP with the recommended changes.
Do we have a motion?
I motion.
I second.
Excellent. We have a motion to accept
Oh, now we can discuss it.
the changes? Any discussion? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. That motion has been approved. Good, thank you. And now we'll move to the next agenda item, American Rescue Plan discussion.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the memo that's in your packet is roughly the same memo that I issued in last month before the EDA decided to kind of spend some time to think about this. So a little bit of an update, as Jennifer mentioned, the city council will be discussing the city's ARP funds in a workshop on Monday, November 8th. So we do have it scheduled for the council to discuss those funds. Just as a reminder, the city has approximately just over 1.4 million. We got about a little over 700,000 of it in July, and we'll probably get another 700,000 payment roughly next June, July as well. So they're doing it in two tranches, 50% and 50%. That they're also doing that for counties as well. I think, did everyone get it, Tyler, in two?
They do.
Okay.
Yep.
I think
And they-
maybe the state got it in one, but
Yeah, and the feds are working really hard to get the word tranche used on a regular basis.
like
We need more
tranches.
tranches in this world, yeah.
But
So again, there's four main buckets. I think for the purposes of the EDA, there's really, I think the two main buckets are bucket one, which is respond to the public health emergency with respect to coronavirus disease or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, or aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. Is, I think, the main bucket that I think that kind of falls under the EDA purview. The other ones are talking about, premium pay for essential workers, provisions for government services to the extent of reduction in revenue. So pretty much that's revenue replacement, and then also investments in water, sewer, and broadband. I think it was back in June or July we presented the EDA with the interim final rule from the Treasury regarding the ARP funds. That is still what is in place. There's that rule. And so having gone through that rule, again, they dive into those buckets and another smaller little buckets underneath each bucket of potential uses. Again, so those are all listed in your packet. I won't bother going through them all. We did just list some identified areas that, these aren't limited. These are just things I think we as staff have identified, have been hearing that there may be needs of in our community, from expanded childcare options, workforce recruitment, retention, job training, job placement programs, small business support programs, commercial residential facade improvements, and residential development planning, marketing, incentives. So with that, what we're really looking forward for the day is to have a conversation with the EDA. What are some of your you believe should be priorities to the city on the use of these funds, and then we can share that with the city council on November 8th of, the EDA met and discussed this, and this is also what the EDA believes that the council needs to consider when setting priorities for these funds.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Chansky. All right, commissioners, comments, ideas, direction. I personally would just like to encourage the funds to be used myself, childcare. I mean, every business in town is looking for employees, and one of the biggest needs that I hear of is childcare, good childcare, where the employees of the childcare facilities are paid more than $12 an hour. We need to pay them what they're worth, and I see them as $18 to $20 an hour people.
Wayne, you're killing me. I'm already paying $35 a day for the $12.
Well put, Gabe. I'm serious. We need to help the families. We need to help the daycare facilities. We need to help the YMCA, whatever we can do. To me, that's going to bring people to Brainerd. That's going to bring people to the area. If we've got excellent childcare, we need the 20 and 30-year-olds and the 40-year-olds here in our community. There's enough of us old people around here. You don't need more of me. You need more of the younger people that can do the jobs, can do the work. And to me, that's childcare. And if we've got excellent childcare, I've seen facilities around the upper Midwest that are run really well. And people just flock to them. And I think, man, $700,000 or $1 million would, somehow we need to develop our, and in that childcare. I mean, we need housing. There's no doubt about it to put these people, but if there's childcare out there and it doesn't cost $40 a day for one child, how can we do that? I just, that's where I want to see more money put. That's my 2 cents. Someone else, comments? Yes.
Yeah, I think along those lines too, it's just helping businesses identify what's a competitive benefits package. And I know for me as a small business, like Tyler, I took that survey and it seems like it's geared more towards larger businesses. So for me as a small business, I don't have any benefits right now. How do I compete with like Target or Chipotle, where they have like these amazing benefits packages and the pay they're able to give? How do I compete as a small business? How do I afford that? I want to pay my workers fairly and give them a comprehensive benefits, but I also need to be able to, run my business. So yeah, I think just any help we can give to smaller businesses, helping them identify ways that they can afford a comprehensive benefits package and affordable pay for their workers so that we can attract and retain them.
So, Marie, I'm going to respond to that, and that's kind of a little bit of what that survey is designed to do, is to give us kind of a roadmap with this. We're having conversations right now to create a, if you want to call it, and I'm getting out in front of this, and this is probably letting a little bit of a cat out of a bag, but it's okay because I think I'm far enough along with this, but is to create a consortium of small businesses and try and identify benefit packages to help businesses that have less than 5 employees or less than 10 employees, and bring those groups together. We've identified some carriers out there that will work with a group like that to offer competitive benefits to a small business provider. I work with the Nonprofit Council of Minnesota. Now, I know you're not a nonprofit, but they offer programs that help small businesses identify benefit packages that they can afford, but they do that by banding a group of small businesses together. And so I'm trying to vet out right now what they deem is a fair number of small businesses to come together. I look at the downtown, the business group that you have, and whether or not you could pool those types of resources to have a competitive benefit package put together that everyone is eligible for inside that consortium. So it's something that this is geared towards manufacturing. This is geared, the survey that's put out there right now, and that just happens to be the partners that we're working with this. But the goal coming out of that is to identify where our gaps are, and I know our gaps right now are in the packages that small businesses can offer, because you're playing on you're not playing on a level playing field. It's not available to you because most of these companies are looking at, well, I'm going to offer benefit packages, and the cost of these benefits is going to continue to come down the more employees you put on it. So that's what we're looking for right now, and we're pretty close to being able to offer something. The initiative foundations, and I use them all, have started venturing down this path, but they're running into a couple of roadblocks, and primarily it's staffing, but they're trying to figure out how they can put this together. So I've worked with Don Hickman on this as well, and so we're trying to figure this out and hope to have some answers for you fairly soon. But this type of money, I don't know that this type of money can be leaned into that bucket, but it's not saying that it can't. There's some, as we discussed yesterday, there's some catch-all buckets in here that are a little bit funny. Gabe, back to your point of putting some of this money and dealing with the audit later. Mm-hmm. Some of this is economic development, economic support. That's a bucket. and whether or not, again, it's just like the childcare conversation, Wayne, and some of the things that are coming out of the county as well is sustainability. It's nice to be able to say, hey, we can offer incentives to retain employees or give signing bonuses and put some of this money towards that, but is it sustainable? 3 years from now, Gabe doesn't want to, okay, I'm paying $35 a month, and all of a sudden this money dries up, and all of a sudden the YMCA's got to double their costs so that they can afford to pay these people $18 to $20 an hour. So there is some mechanisms in place, and hopefully we can figure a little bit of this out. But my goal, Marie, is to be able to put something together that can band some groups together to figure this out. Hopefully I answered your question. It's not a quick fix.
I know it's just something me personally I'm dealing with our
Yep.
business, and I know it's got to be a challenge for other small businesses, and not even small businesses. I go through the Wendy's drive-through and they have signs up on their thing saying, we have to close at 7 because we're short-staffed, and so I know like big companies are dealing with this just the same as small businesses. So what can we do in general to?
Yeah, we have 4
that
employees.
shortage?
We can't afford to offer benefits to people, and that's where some of this is stemming from. But it is, that's how you attract employees. We said it time and time again. Pay is one thing, but the benefits is a huge piece of this.
Yes, Tony?
One thing that I've noticed with our employees is education. Actually talking to them what these benefits can do and how it works for them to save money and put money in their own pocket. I know we offer the dependent care credit, and we have no one that is choosing to elect it, even though I know they have childcare out there and they could get it pre-tax and not have to wait to the end of the year. They could get it in their pocket right away. It's just educating employees why you're offering these benefits and how it benefits the employee. So.
One of the questions I asked yesterday, and I'd like to ask this group the same question. This came up at our River to Rail meeting yesterday as we were talking about some of this, but a lot of this money can be put towards grants, business assistance grants like we did last year. Are any of you as a business owner, as people in this community, as city council members, are you feeling the need for economic assistance grants right now?
I would say yes, just because I've heard from other small businesses that applied for like the restaurant revitalization or other programming, and it just seems like luck of the draw as to whether you get it or not. So I know there's still
sure.
businesses out there that maybe they received some initial grant money, but some of these other grant programs that come out, they're not eligible or they just didn't receive it. So I think, yeah, so if we can fill in the gaps where those businesses that haven't received assistance can get some sort of funding.
The deed challenge is that the grant that's out there, the 2 grants that are out there right now to help businesses are all tied to whether you've received assistance prior to this. So if a business is saying, well, I didn't take a dime through any of the other programs that were available, you're eligible this time. And then you have to have a 15% reduction in gross revenues from 2019 to 2020, or 2020 compared to 2019. So there's some, they make it challenging, as they should with a lot of grants, but the primary piece of most of the grants that are offered through the state right now are tied to whether or not you've received any assistance in the past. So, but if you use this money, it is still tied to federal dollars, and that's one of the keys to this is that you can put this out there locally, but it's still tied to a federal fund, if you will. But I'm just asking the question. We're not hearing it. And I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. It's just that we're not hearing it right now. County staff tells me they're not hearing it, so I'm just asking the question.
Tyler, I'm not hearing it. Obviously there are definitely businesses hurting, but I think by and large, pretty much everybody's having a pretty darn good year. Everything is back and kind of, economically at least, everything's kind of rolling again. So I don't think we would want to use ARP funds for one-time grants, because no offense to any business struggling right now, but if you're struggling in 2021, $10,000-$20,000 ain't gonna fix you. You gotta make some changes in your business. Back to the childcare, just another question, just tossing it out there, like wondering if we can buy land. Can we give the YMCA $1.5 million to buy a childcare facility?
100%.
We can.
Absolutely.
And I'll say on the childcare, the YMCA is doing their capital campaign for theirs. Teeny Bubbles had actually gotten a CUP and purchased the old Just for Kicks building. They've actually had to completely put that project on hold, mainly because they got into that building and they realized that it was going to require a lot more because it's a childcare facility. Certain things go up a notch. Like they realized that HVAC system doesn't meet state standards
Really, a
for a
pole
childcare
barn on a
facility.
swamp isn't really the right place for
So they've had to essentially put that facility on hold because they don't have the funds at this time to replace that HVAC system to get up to par so that they can actually have a childcare facility there. So
Business-
I think if there were money out there for childcare, it absolutely would be gobbled up.
Business startup and expansion. I'll identify a few of the eligible expenses, and they're directly related to childcare. Childcare, business startup and expansion, training, subsidies and incentives to retain employees. You probably don't want, that's a slippery slope. Again, sustainability there. Facility modifications or improvements, equipment, playground equipment, safety equipment. So it covers the entire gamut of starting a new facility or opening a new facility. You could put as much money towards it as you choose. And you would check a big box. It's very easy. It's, all of the expenses are directly tied to it. And that's one of the big buckets here. So
And I don't know if Connie's still online, but if we just wrote one check with the federal funds, she would be absolutely delighted.
That's an easy audit.
Yep, that's
She's
easy
on.
for the audit.
But this money cannot be given to Tiny Bubbles or to whoever else is running the daycare. Can the money, we can't ask for it back in interest or.
I think, well, depending on how you want to do it, if the city wanted to do it as a.
I don't think you can generate a profit
on
from
it,
it.
it still has to get spent. So if we had it as,
Well,
even if it was 0% interest and got the money back, that's a question I think we might have to ask our financial advisor. We might have to ask our auditors, because say we give the money away and then we get the money back after 2024.
You're cooked.
But
You're giving it back to the feds.
We then have to give it back to the federal government. How does that work? I don't think we necessarily want the money back, because the question becomes, what do we do with the money if we get it back?
Connie, do you know the answer to that question?
I'm sorry, I got interrupted. What was the question?
So the question, Connie, is what happens if we essentially were to do a grant program or some kind of loan program where then the city gets its money back?
Can you loan out ARP funds?
I don't know if you can loan them out. I know you can do grants, but I don't know if you can loan them out. And the doing things to private businesses, like the grant program, and those that are has some concern, is that we have to make sure that that business knows that it's federal funds and how they're using it. We still have to monitor that.
So there would still have to be reporting and such, but yeah, we
Right.
definitely
And
wouldn't
we-
want to necessarily do a loan program, because if we get the money back again,
I mean,
money
it
is-
literally
don't know.
says right there, expenses to improve efficacy of economic relief programs such as loans.
But
Mm.
I think we just need to dig into it more of what those loans mean and what the grant and what the interest rate could be and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that no, it can be used for that, but we need to dig into it more.
and good catch, that was pulled right out of the interim private, yeah, that was something we would just need to talk to Clifton Larson, probably talk to Clifton Larson Allen about, and figure out if we were to go down that route, what are the implications of going down that route?
I would like to at least ask that question, because, giving $500,000 to a daycare facility to benefit our community, but to see that come back at 0% interest and reinvest it into another facility or another area with small business or something. That's a direction I think we should at least ask. If we can't, we can't.
I do know that the interest that is earned on this money while it's in our checking account, there are no restrictions on that.
Ooh, we're talking 0.5% nowadays, man.
Exactly.
In a CD, not in the savings account.
And unfortunately, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Connie, I think it specifically says you can't invest this money.
Plus, you can't even buy a CD.
It can sit in our checking account, but I
there
don't
we
think we
go.
can, hit up the stock exchange with it.
Yeah.
No Dogecoin for us.
Tony, do you have a question or comment? Anything else? So do we need to make a recommendation here today?
Nope,
the
I think
city?
we're taking notes, and unless, Jennifer, you have...
No, I'm just curious, any other, so our plan as staff is, we mentioned that the council is going to have a work session on November 8th. We are going to present the council with some recommendations. We figured it was a way to kind of get the discussion started. I don't know which way the council will go. Another one of the uses for this is, water and sewer and broadband. The city is doing a couple of pretty big water and sewer projects coming up. The council could decide to use all $1.4 million for that. But we thought it was really important to give the council some options and some other things to think about. This is a one-time deal. We're getting $1.4 million. So I just think we just wanted to give the council something to think about.
And also on that too, Mr. Chair, if any members of the EDA things come up, you hear things, myself, Jennifer, Connie, we'd love to hear about it. And, between now, November 8th, so that as Jennifer said, preparing our list, when we go before the council, we can have, here's what the ARP is. And then here's just some identified potential uses that could benefit our community, and have that discussion with council of what do you want to do with it. So if things come up in the next month or so, and, please send them our way, and so we can make note of them.
Well, go ahead.
Is that November 9th meeting? That's a joint EDA council meeting workshop, isn't it? Or is that's just a city
That's the
council?
city council.
Oh, that the EDA is not invited? Well, I invite you all to come, and you will be heard. if you have
Yes,
something to say.
absolutely, and if we choose to come, we can notice it that a quorum of the EDA might be present. It's not a problem. Super easy to do. It is a public meeting, so it will be, available to everyone.
And
to
based
join.
on Monday's city council meeting, our current city council president will let anybody talk about anything.
Yes, the EDA could also today adjourn to that meeting. Well, actually, you have, after the next meeting, because you have a meeting before that meeting, so. Yep.
My thoughts are, I do not want to see this money go into the water and sewer department. I don't think that does anything for the economic development of Brainerd as far as creating employees or businesses. I mean, I know there's a need, but to me, that is a citywide need by all. So as an EDA member, I don't want to see that money. I mean, I'm sure there's probably people that want to see it go that direction, but I don't want to see it go that way to me, that, not that it's a waste of, but it doesn't do anything for our community as far as growth. Anybody disagree with me?
I totally agree with you, Wayne.
So is it up to us as an EDA to make sure we're at that November 8th meeting to state that fact to those city council members?
I think it's an important point to make. We can certainly include it in our report as an EDA recommendation if you would like us to.
Tony?
One thing to consider, when you are doing updates to the infrastructure, all those go into WAC and SAC fees, correct?
So SAC and WAC is tricky. Would be the easiest way to describe SAC and WAC, in that SAC and WAC really is can really only be used for upsizing. It can't really even be used for, if you're gonna replace, for example, we do a lot of the streets, the engineering department, anytime they're doing streets, if there's an old sewer or water line in there, we still have a bunch of, petrified clay pipes. When they replace that, we actually can't use sack and whack to do it. If they're replacing an 8-inch with an 8-inch, it doesn't do replacements. If you need to replace an 8-inch with a 12-inch because of growth, well, then you could use sack and whack for that. But for just basic replacements, we've actually found a very hard time using sack and whack.
The majority of the WAC funds have gone to BPU because they are doing some expansion, and so that, I think the SAC is a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, so sack and whack is very tricky to use, unfortunately. It can't just be used for just general improvements. It has to be upsizing, in short.
My only question was, I'm all for childcare, but if we are upsizing with our waste treatment and everything like that, is that going to increase the whack and sack, which then would prohibit a business potentially coming in because it's higher fees?
Tony, from a city council perspective, sack and whack is more likely to be eliminated than it is to be increased.
Oh.
Sack and whack some council members thought they were clever in 2002 and copied the Met Council on what they do in the suburbs of Minneapolis, and it has no applicability in the city of Brainerd, and it's more likely to be eliminated than increased.
And I think
Oh,
you would
good.
find that you'd have general staff support for that
Yeah.
decision.
Good, I just know there's a lot of clients that outside of Brainerd that's a issue with the fees.
And
so.
to
And
that
that was one of the big things from River to Rail, where we
That's
have
actually
gotten
been
businesses downtown based on the sack and whack
very-
difference between 371 West and downtown Brainerd, where we have zero sack and whack.
Big J's is that exact situation. Yeah,
And
he
the
went-
13 salons that have moved
Yep.
in the last 2 years.
Yes, they went. Big J's, for example, that owner, he went to Baxter first, and got a $35,000 estimate for sack and whack. We told him he started. I think he got called Becky LaPlante and looking at somewhere downtown, and he called us, and I said, "Oh, by the way, there's no." He's like, "What would sack and whack be?" I'm like, "Nothing," and he said, "Done."
And that was
I
just
think
my
it-
question with the funds being transferred between the different buckets. If sack and whack isn't an issue, then that's fine. I just know it, as a business starting up, that's an issue.
And I don't think the sack and whack fees have been increased since they were put in place. If they have, it's been 15 years plus since they have been increased. So, were you concerned that if we do this, will it increase sack and whack? They're kind of interdependent or separate items, so.
Thank you, Connie. Is there any other discussion? We don't have to make a recommendation today. Next month, we will have to make a firm recommendation.
And we can certainly pull together what you have discussed today.
thank you.
And then just put it on your agenda
thank you.
for you to consider making a formal recommendation to the council.
Excellent. That'll be good. So that should take care of our discussion today. Good. Let's move on. New business? Any new business? I guess we've had lots. Tony?
I just have a couple things. Last meeting, when we were talking about the new resident guide, I also mentioned about starting a business in Brainerd. Has anyone looked into that and how
You're
to
2
start
agenda
it?
points early here, Tony.
Am I? I didn't
Yeah, it's
see
new
that.
business, informational, then commissioner comments.
Okay. All right, I'm good. I'll wait.
We'll get there quickly, though.
I have no new business or informational, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's move on to commissioner comments. Tony, you're first.
Sorry, new here. So starting a business in Brainerd, have we started, or are we thinking about doing a packet? Because I know when I have to expand our business into other states for a client, I do a lot of research to figure out what I need to do to join the state, to join the city, to do what I need to do to expand there. I think it would be very beneficial to make it easy for someone, like here's the list of 10 things you need to do to start a business in the Brainerd.
Excellent comment. Excellent.
So I think that's extremely helpful for anyone looking to relocate or expand their business or to start new. second thing is I was wondering at the next meeting if we could do that goals sheet again?
Yep, we'll have an update.
Okay. Cool. And then, last meeting, I also asked about, expansion on social media platforms to engage our community. I was wondering if there was any input or thoughts on that.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Commissioner, I think I can address that. So, we were fortunate to have an intern here for 3.5 months to do our communications. The city doesn't actually have a communications person, but I have asked Tony if she would step up and kind of take over some of the communications now since Jesse has left. So I haven't had a chance to kind of circle back around with Tony, but we will. I know we have been trying to have more of a presence on Facebook, and hopefully people have seen that. It was certainly much easier when Jesse was here, but even this last week or so, I see quite a few posts. But we'll continue that discussion, and I think it's really important.
Good. Anything else? Excellent, excellent points. No, this is really good. Thank you so much. Those are important points to bring up, Tony. Good. Anyone else? Gabe?
I have one thing, Wayne, if anybody noticed in the newspaper Saturday afternoon, went out at Camp Fanastic in Baxter, and the YMCA launched a new capital campaign, and it's not your typical annual funding capital campaign. This is a generational capital campaign where the YMCA is trying to build a brand new, much larger YMCA in their location in Brainerd. They're trying to build a indoor sports soccer type year-round facility. They're trying to expand their childcare, and they're looking to the tune of $16 to $18 million in this capital campaign. And it's very exciting for Brainerd. It's very exciting for downtown Brainerd, and it's very exciting for the whole region. So just keep your eyes on that, and if you know anybody with deep pockets, let them know the YMCA needs $18 million.
Anything else? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, city. Man, you guys do a great job. Just appreciate all your information. I don't have anything else. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor to adjourn, say
Aye.
aye.